Hi, I'm Andy.
And I'm Lindsey. Welcome to E-commerce Marketing with the Pitbulls, where we try to cut through the noise and simplify digital marketing for authentic brands looking to make more money online.
Excellent. Well said. Today, I'm really excited. We are joined by Chelsea Ford. Chelsea is the founder of Females in Food. That's a platform that encompasses a number of different things. Chelsea, I'm very excited for you to kind of walk us through all of these things. But predominantly, I found you through the podcast, Foodpreneur Podcast, which I think is really valuable, a ton of information there. And I know you also run the Foodpreneurs Formula, which is a coaching session. So I'd love if you could just we were talking about this before we jumped on offline, and you were walking us through your background a little bit. And I'd love if you could just kind of give the audience some of that.
Thank you so much, Andy. And hi, Lindsey. So thrilled to be joined with the two of you and to be talking about DTC and food and drink and, just putting more money in people's pockets. For me, I have a background at the big end of town, which means that I cut my teeth primarily with big American firms very early in my career with Hyatt. So I got very good customer service training and the beginnings of sales. And then ultimately with Sara Lee in the coffee and tea division, was poached and went to Nestle, and then came back to Kellogg. And so my life really has been hardcore package, product, sales, marketing, commercial, P&L, big stuff. But my values really did stop aligning with the big end of town, with all due respect to them. And I ended up doing my master's in applied social science, which is effectively management and people. And I wrote my thesis on women mentors empowering women mentees. And it was at that same time that I saw that so many women in particular, and I think this predates the so-called big resignation, but I think it might be related to it insofar as people wanting to follow their hearts more, which was happening to me as well. And I had all these huge commercial experience and confidence, but a creative heart and a love of artisanal products and challenger brands. And so that's when I launched Females in Food to support all these women that I saw across the world, but predominantly the US and Australia, where my two biggest markets, build out a business, not just a hobby, so that they could land more accounts, could get product into more consumers' hands, and could put more money in their pocket for every product that they sell. Because food and drink is a hard game. It's a really fabulous, wonderful game, but it's also quite hard to make money. And I don't say that to frighten anybody. I just say it to be real. And today we're going to uncover some of the secrets to that, which I'm really looking forward to.
That's awesome. I feel like you just bring such a wealth of experience here. I have a feeling this is going to be something that we're going to have to repeat to make sure that we can take advantage of all of that you can bring to the table for us here. So yeah, just really good fit, and I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you.
So today we wanted to jump into specifically pricing strategy and some of the things. I know you, again, have like a really broad background and work with a lot of different brands around a number of things. Obviously, we're pretty focused on e-commerce here. Right before we jump into that, though, offline, again, you were telling us a little bit about how you have clients in numerous different markets in Australia, the US, the UK. And I'm really interested to just kind of hear if you can kind of let us know some of the differences. And yeah, I guess just from a point of interest standpoint, I think that's so cool. And I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit about that kind of global experience.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to. It's actually right up my alley because I do feel I've been a global nomad. I've lived in the US, I lived in Canada, and I lived in Japan, or working in the food game, in India as well, in Singapore, Indonesia, New Zealand, and recently, actually, I've just been in the UK working. And there are differences. I would also say, however, there are huge amounts of similarities, and probably people do underestimate that we are so similar across the globe. If we had, I think I'm just speaking broadly, not about food and drink people, but, you know, if we had some more realization around that, perhaps we'd be better at empathizing and supporting one another. There's far more similarities than there are differences. It actually blows my mind. But I would say, if you know, I'm an authority on women in food and drink at the smaller end of town now, and so I could say that English people or British from the UK, incredibly polite, don't colour outside of the lines, really understand challenger brand marketing and comms extremely well. I would say the Americans that I work with, to my surprise, actually, a lot of them not as confident as perhaps sometimes the world may see Americans, you know, in that there's that imposter syndrome. I would also go back to my first point, that imposter syndrome is universal with women. But the level of competition in the US is so great that people have to be incredibly sharp. And there's so much opportunity there too, because there's such a big free market there. And so I see probably a real lack of or opportunity to really understand the different sales channels and stick to their knitting. I don't know if you guys say that, but what I mean by that is, you know, be really focused, you know, go play hard in specialty retail or play hard in food service, whatever it is, or go hard DTC. There's incredible probably DTC stuff happening out of the US more than anywhere else, again, because of the size of your market. It's pretty hard to make it DTC in Australia. And then if I look at Australian women in food and drink, I think there's that imposter syndrome is massive. I also think that there's a lot of spaghetti being thrown on the wall and hoping some of it sticks. Again, not clear around channel strategy. And what I mean by that too, on a practical level too, is that I guess there's two camps predominantly, and that is the DTC or the specialty retail. And yet I just went to the launch of a foodpreneur's product who's gone through to the pharmacy channel. And, you know, she's built a really strong brand. And pharmacy, for example, is a retail channel and good margins and less competition compared to the majors. Or even less onerous than specialty retail, where you've got to deliver direct into multiple stores. So I think that that's an opportunity for Australians and probably other places too, like American women, to be very clear on channel strategy and open their eyes up to what is available. It's not I think people can be very blinkered. You know, they just want to get into Erewhon, or they just want to get into Sprouts, or in my case in Australia, they just want to get into Harris Farm Market, like tick, 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 all super sexy. Planet Organic in London, you know, or Whole Foods it used to be. I think it still is, but maybe not. The luster's come off Whole Foods slightly. So yeah, I think there is opportunities across all markets. And as I said, a lot of similarities as well. So I hope that helps.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. We obviously serve predominantly the US. So it's always good to kind of get that different perspective. Awesome. So as I mentioned today, we wanted to really dig in and kind of pick your brain a little bit about pricing strategy. And we'll get a little specific on the e-commerce side of the house, but can you give us just a high level when you first start working with a new brand? You know, I think especially as you kind of described, you know, folks that are starting as, you know, almost trying to make a business out of a hobby kind of thing. I think, you know, people might look around and say, oh, well, you know, what do I think I could sell this for? What is it sold for in the local market near me kind of thing? It feels to me like it's just a lot of guess and check type thing. So I'm curious if you can kind of put a little structure around that, or like, what are some of the major things that you take into account when you start thinking about pricing strategy?
Yeah, I think channel focus, which is something I just was speaking about with your with that prior conversation around global similarities and differences, but channel focus is really important. Like, how does that channel work? And if we're talking about DTC, which we mostly are today, I think you also need to look at, well, how are you going to market, and how much is that going to cost you in terms of resourcing, time and money, the 2 most precious things for all small businesses. DTC seems very attainable and easy, because you just, whether you set up a market stall or whether you're selling online, or you basically just attract a consumer. They press go, say, yes, I want to buy, and then you deliver the product. But as you guys know, that value chain of attracting the consumer to your site, and then the consumer experience within the site, and then the purchasing of the product, and then the picking, packing, shipping, is quite complex and really tiring. The people that I work with who do DTC, and in fact, I was just speaking to someone who turns over 1.9 million, so she's not super small, been in the game for 9 years, she's in ice cream, and she has a business partner, and they have a great relationship. So they're all kind of key words that I ask and listen out for, but they're exhausted. They're absolutely exhausted. It's, sending things yourself is really exhausting, but doesn't mean it has to be that way. So anyway, I guess to come back to your question, one of the things that I check is, have you done the pricing backwards from the postage, the packing, the picking? That's labor as well as materials. Often that's the biggest thing that I see at the small end of town, is that people do not charge for their labor. And so if you ever wanted to sell your business or just have a day off, you need to account for the fact that you're working in the business. And the reason I bring up selling your business is because I know when people want to buy businesses, if a labor component for the founder is not in there, but they're working in the business, and then they sell the business and the founder doesn't come too, they've got the new buyer's got to pay somebody. So let's call it like $80,000 salary. Well, you need to have that somewhere. So, and then last thing I'll say, Andy and Lindsey, is just the capacity to deliver, because you're making, baking, creating, picking, packing, posting, selling. Like it's a lot. And I hope that's not too negative, but that's kind of all the things that I look for.
No, I think that's so interesting. And thinking through that bottom up, I kind of think of that as kind of the bottom up way of thinking of it, right? Is like, like we got to cover our costs. So let's think through all the different things that we need to touch on. And what I like so much, and I'm so passionate about when we talk about craft brands, I think there's more ability to work top down at the same time and sell to not how much did it cost you to get this out the door, but also to, what's the value you're delivering to somebody, which, may not necessarily be what it cost you. It's, the value that they are getting from the product. And I think that's something that sometimes people miss a little bit too, right? Is they just try to say, okay, well, what's our base costs, and then mark up a particular margin on that. When in reality, with, a craft product with a passionate story and mission behind it, I think oftentimes you can set a price that's maybe a little bit higher and bake in that little bit larger margin, which gives you some freedom to do different things, whether it be, trying different products out, trying different things out. You're not, to your point, you're not kind of just like scraping by and kind of living that exhausted life, just trying to make ends meet. So, I think it's an interesting way to kind of look at it from both sides.
If I can jump in around that value point that you make, it is a brilliant point, because if you're selling e-commerce, you have to drive people to your store online, and you want to keep them there. You want it to be sticky, and you want them to come back. And the value proposition that you provide, which is price is only part that. I think user experience is another component of that. And I think being part of a tribe is another part of that. And I can give you an example in a moment. That's value. That's why people are going to bother going to your site, staying there, and then coming back for the repeat purchase. Because, of course, a repeat purchase is said to be in the vicinity. This is a bit of kind of an old data point, but I'm going to go with it anyway, that it's about 25 times cheaper to keep a client than it is to get a new one. And, you know, it's not like you are Whole Foods driving foot traffic into your store. You don't have those resources, but it's the same thing. You have to drive people to your store, your e-commerce platform, and then sell to them. So if you can be really values driven, yes, from a heart and mind, but an experiential, you know, it's annoying if something doesn't work. And inversely, it's a joy if you know you're contributing to a values-led business or a values-aligned business, that yes, the product needs to be desirable and tasty and look beautiful. But I also know, like, for instance, pardon me, a client of mine is Coast and Smoke barbecue seasonings and rubs. And she's built a tribe around barbecuers, you know, and people buy into the fact that they're part of this. They probably don't call them a tribe themselves, but that's effectively what she's doing behind the scenes. And I love that, you know, because that's part of value that you build with your tone of voice, your brand, you know, the elements of your brand that are potentially unwritten, but that we all buy into. And I think the newer generations, younger generations want that more than ever. You know, I'm an X generation. We will work hard, you know, buy designer handbag kind of generation. The younger generation couldn't care less about that stuff, you know, and I think it's fantastic, much more values alignment and being part of fantastic human experiences. Yeah.
I'd actually like to ask about that, seeing as you came from what you described, the big side of town, to now the smaller side of town. What would you say to some of these foodpreneurs who are seeing kind of the big guys really taking up the space on the shelves? They've got so much in their corner, and you kind of feel like, you know, you're alone fighting in this. What drew you from the big side of town to the small side of town that makes them so special, and why would you be behind them and helping bring them up? What makes the small food brand so compelling in that way?
You know, I feel the emotion rise in my body as you ask that, Lindsey, because the big end of town for so long have been destroying our planet with the packaging. And whilst we've had packaging covenants and the intent from the big end of town to do something different, I only see it starting to happen now. Now, that's not across the board. You know, I think, I don't want to mention names, but there's some that have been doing it really great. You know, they haven't been putting plastic into landfill, but the majority have. And what drew me to foodpreneurs is the values alignment, the passion, the creativity. I got so inordinately tired of seeing so-called innovation and NPD pipelines that were really just, say, a cookie going from a white chocolate to a dark chocolate. That's not innovation. That is flavor rotation, or, you know, I can't even remember what we used to call it, but, you know, there was no innovation. And of course, it's hard. It's a little bit like government, right? You know, it's like turning the Titanic with a toothpick. It's very, very difficult. And I think in terms of your question with regards to foodpreneurs seeing the big end of town and they take up so much shelf space and they have so much facings, yeah, that is the way of the world. They're the ones that can afford the bigger listings, the biggest point of sale, that kind of thing. But you know, younger generations, and I look at you and you look young, and I think, you know, we're relying on you. We need you. We need you to continue you and your peers bringing awareness to the impact of behaviors. And I do think corporations are definitely changing. But at the end of the day, the most foodpreneurs that I work with, they don't actually do it for money. So I help them. And it's been interesting for me as their coach, to educate them on something that really wasn't their first intention. And interestingly, it's not mine either. I'm not really driven by money. I'm driven by the beauty, and I love food and drink, and I've always been in it since forever. And I think that's the shared heart space that I connect with them on, and I just want to see them do well and have greater impact, and be able to, buy school shoes for their kids, be able to take a day off, be able to send their child to that school that they want them to go to, or, buy themselves that nice handbag if that's their shtick, whatever it is, just live life on their terms. That's what's really important to me. And that's why I do what I do. And the truth is too, that the big end of town, like a marketing director of Nestle said to me relatively recently when she found out what I do, she's like, wow, your people are really giving us a run for our money. And I was like, yeah, you could learn from that.
Yeah. I think that's what's so exciting hearing you talk, is it really sounds like you're exactly that. You're giving them the tools to give the big guys a run for their money, which is so exciting. And I'm sure some of these foodpreneurs never thought they could be in that position. And it's awesome that they have the resources now to really be able to take on that fight. And I think there's something really exciting about the shakeup in the market, that we can be more values driven, and the larger companies are seeing that and saying, oh, now I think we need to change a little bit to meet that.
Yeah, and that light you just alluded to, that's like, oh, wow, I can do it. Like, say, for instance, I actually coached Claire from Coast and Smoke on my podcast. So anybody listening to this can listen to my coaching session with her. And I think it was episode 43. But that light, because the premise of the coaching session that I did for her, and anybody else who wanted to listen to it, because it was about sales and it's obviously free, downloadable, is that foodpreneurs think of sales as an afterthought, and it's very scary for them. And I gave Claire a solution around storytelling, and that it's solution selling, which is a big business term really for just effectively, whoever you are, retailer, you've got an opportunity in this category, I've got a solution, let's put it together. That's obviously an oversimplification. But Claire now has said to me, I feel so hopeful, Chelsea. And I mean, gee, like who wouldn't do my job? Like, it's nice. It's lovely.
Yeah.
I think you hit on a few points there too, that it is maybe encouraging that, it's tough to compete, especially as we're talking about price and margin. When you're talking with these really big time brands, you're not going to really undercut them on price. But I think that's where we love the e-commerce channel, because it allows you to differentiate a little bit more in a couple ways. One, you have more space to tell your whole story. It's not just the label on your box. You've got a whole website to, run through not only your products, but also your mission, who you are, what your background is. But then also it's just, you're not next to all your competitors. So you don't necessarily have to say, hey, if I'm a customer, I'm standing in front of a shelf with 50 different cookies on it, with each one with their price labeled right in front of it. It's, hey, I'm looking at a website that only has this one brand. So I have to take a little time to learn about it. And there isn't a direct price comparison. So I think it's a little bit easier to say, hey, if we're giving that value, we're building a tribe, we're, giving somebody not only a great cookie, but also a sense of belonging and a sense of giving back to their community and all those great things that we're doing. We can actually charge the proper pricing for it when we differentiate ourselves and put ourselves out there a little bit, as opposed to, having to sit on the shelves next to, some of those big box brands.
Yes. And I love that you talk about telling the story. And for me, what springs to mind is the recipes as well. You have the opportunity with an e-commerce brand, and Trade Street Jam from Brooklyn is one that I absolutely adore. Ashley Rouse, Rouse is the founder's name, and she went to culinary school. So her jams, they're actually quite viscous. They're very kind of loose. They're not like a traditional hardcore conserve. So they're more like to be used in cocktails and sauces, and absolutely exquisite. God, I just love her and everything she does. Anyway, so when you're on her e-commerce site, you get to see all the chipotle and white peach. You know, you can put it in with sparkling wine, or actually chipotle probably not, but the white peach. Forgive me, Ashley. But you get to see, you know, like she talks to you about all of these things online, and you can't do that in store. You know, you get to also have combo deals, and of course you can have combo deals elsewhere, but it's much better on e-commerce where you go, oh yeah, I need that too. It's a bundle, that makes sense. Oh, champagne and white peaches, or cheese and fig, yeah, beauty, it's all there, for instance. Or if it's just in the one category, you know, the Genoan figs and the black figs or whatever. I love that. Yeah, it's good. I completely agree with you, Andy. Yeah. Definitely. And so it's the user experience, right? At the end of the day, it's, gosh, this is informative. Gosh, this is helpful. It's the know, like, trust factor.
Tell me, so we've talked about some of the different ways that you can differentiate, especially on different channels, and have a little bit more story behind it, and all those different things to kind of drive people towards paying for the value, not just the cost of the product. But when you are working in both channels, you know, so you are on retail stores and you're, you know, beholden to some of the constraints there, and you also have your e-commerce channel, how do you look at that, or how do you advise their clients when you're trying to do both, and presumably you would have a little bit different pricing strategy, or you try to sell to you know, different prices in different places to different people? Is that okay? Is that not okay? How do you think about that, and how do you you know, tell your clients to approach that?
You can't undercut your wholesalers when you go DTC. You have to have a relativity if you are serious about building out your wholesale operation. You have to have really the one price facing forward, and behind the scenes with your wholesalers, perhaps, you know, you might have other deals like off invoice and promo deals and marketing solutions, activations that differ. But really, I think you have to have, predominantly speaking, one price in the market. You can, if you're going wholesale and you're in retail, you of course can't dictate the retailer sell price, but your wholesale price there needs to be a degree of benchmarking, and so there's no undercutting from you of your wholesalers. What I think, if you're an early stage foodpreneur listening to this and you're in multiple channels, I'd ask you to rethink that. And I have this model called the 5 1s, which is simply, you know, choose one target market, be really clear on them, do your avatar work. And please don't yawn when I say avatar, even though everybody talks about it. I really mean get that done properly, and look at the psychographics as much as more than the demographics. And it's not you, it's not always just you, because the problem that I see with avatar work is that people just describe themselves all the time. And often that's why we've started a business anyway. It's like, I am irritated, I cannot find what I'm looking for, what I need for my child or for my life, so I create something that I want. Totally get it. The research that I did pre-launch suggests that about 41% of people do that, you know, because they're trying to solve a problem personal to them, their own gluten intolerance, their own child's nut allergy, etc. So anyway, one target market at the beginning, one sales channel, so just e-commerce, one marketing channel, so how you're driving it. So for instance, with your line of expertise. It would be, am I doing Google ads? Great, excellent. That's what I'm doing. One category, I'm just doing ambient conserves. I'm not also doing frozen delivery, and do that for 1 year, for 12 months. So that's my 5 ones, get really tight on that. If you are more advanced and you've got your 5 ones absolutely humming and you're ready to take on another channel, I guess I've already said about having that price somewhat uniform, or at least just being mindful that you're not undercutting people that that's selling wholesale for you. But I would also look at, in terms of the differentiation, you do need to then consider your bottom up or your pricing backwards, to make sure that all the elements of selling into a market where there's more intermediaries like distributors, brokers, agents, wholesalers, whatever, they all clip the ticket as well. You've now got to afford them. So that's the conversation that I would be having with them. Yeah. Did I get your question right, Andy?
No, I think so. Yeah. And I think we oftentimes even try to push in the opposite direction. Sometimes you can, try to charge more than you would in the retail experience and try to find ways that, whether it be bundling your products differently or adding on a subscription or something like that, where you're giving some of those experiential points that are adding value, but you're able to kind of charge a higher margin, because we see in DTC, to that point, you have all the intermediaries in the wholesale channel. And then on the, the e-commerce side, you've got to deal with shipping and marketing, and, you're paying for your own advertisements and all of those different things. So, yeah, so I think it's just an interesting point too. One, you have to keep it, uniform enough that nobody feels like they're getting taken advantage of, or your partners aren't going to come back to you and say, what are you doing here trying to undercut us? But then two, see if you can get creative around differentiating your product line even across different channels. But I love that.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's really true. And I would say that uniformity is really that kind of end price as opposed to the wholesale price, so to speak, like that suggested retail price or recommended retail price, depending on where you're listening from. Yes, absolutely. And I love that idea that you're talking about with bundling, so that you can't really compare apples with apples, that there might just be online products that aren't available elsewhere. So then again, you can't compare, you, the consumer. You can only get it exclusively on my site. That's another strategy too, which I think is really easy to execute.
Definitely. And I think that last piece too that you had brought in, I love that idea. Was it the 5 ones you had said?
Yes.
But yeah, just simplifying. I think we see that so much, especially with brand new entrepreneurs, people trying different things. We obviously are coming at it from the marketing space, and we hear that all the time. I've tried Google ads and TikTok ads and Facebook, and nothing has worked. And I've, set up 15 different ads across this different channel. And it's like, you know what, let's just simplify. Let's try one thing, hopefully the thing that's most likely to work first, see that through. And if it does work, then, maximize that. And if it doesn't, then move on to the next thing. But yeah, I think that kind of shiny object syndrome is definitely something that gets a lot of new folks starting out, is trying to spread themselves too thin.
And one of the art to this really is to have strategy. Strategy can be, next to pivot, the most overused word in the universe. But I really mean it. Stop, breathe, reflect, have a think about where you want to go, where you are steering your ship, your business, and then set yourself up for success. That kind of throwing spaghetti on the wall factor, I can also understand, because in the early stages, you're trying to make money and you're hoping against hope that whatever sticks will make you money, so you can continue to do this, so you don't need to go back to your day job, or that you don't need to pick up more hours elsewhere on a job that you don't want to do. You want to live your best life in your business and you want to be your own boss. So my encouragement strongly is to sit with the uncomfortability of the not knowing, because this is something I see as well, of the inability of people to sit still and not no, and that be okay. So take risk, but do it in an educated fashion. Lean into the community that you're in, ask questions. But I would also add to that is the quality of the answers that you're going to get are determined by the quality of your questions. You know, so about 50% of the time, I've seen questions that I would have no clue on how to answer because they don't make sense. So have a think about what you're writing, and then think about what kind of answer you're trying to elicit. And then the clearer that you are, the better the answer, the way you can go forward. And a lot of times you can do that for free. You know, there's umpteen Facebook groups and chat locations and Instagram threads and blah, 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 you know. So I would say just have a crack at setting that strategy. And, you know, I just gave those 5 ones, just use that. Honestly, I use that. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. That is good business practice, those 5 ones. I mean, ultimately, you know, you're going to expand and not just have one product category. So I need to probably give that caveat. Here I am telling everybody to be explicit. I'll be explicit as well. That, yes, of course. But the point is still be just really clear on your product category, your target market, your sales channel, your marketing channel, and time frames. And normally in business, don't we work in quarterly sprints for a year-long marathon. That's kind of how, regardless of where you are in the world, like in America, you start your financial year, I think, at the 1st of January.
Typically, yeah.
We start ours in the 1st of July.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it's still 12 months, right? And I think Japan, you know, maybe it's I think it might be September. Sorry to Japanese business people if I've got that wrong, but nonetheless, it doesn't actually matter. You know, we all work off a 365-day calendar. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I feel like that's a great kind of place to tie this together and end it there. Talking a little bit about just making sure we're super clear on our strategy. I feel like that's, you know, one of the biggest things that these small brands can do is they come in and try to turn their passion into a successful business and compete with some of the big guys. So yeah, I think that's great. Was there anything we missed? Anything else you really wanted to touch on today, Chelsea?
Oh, you know, Andy, I think I see the absolute beauty in so many e-commerce brands, and the most beauty I see is those that have got compelling you know, brand photographs and key messages, their marketing message. And ultimately, and we have touched on it, so I won't really go deep on it, but just that user experience, you know, be your own customer, and also perhaps ask, I call them friendlies. So for instance, I've over the years and even currently making some pivots in my business. And so there's people that are clients of mine, but they've been with me a long time. They trust me and I value them and their opinion. I ask them, how is this for you, this experience? And they feel safe enough to give me frank feedback. And I would encourage e-commerce brand owners to do the same, is to ask for quality feedback. Because whilst it's really lovely to hear, God, your stuff looks good, or gosh, it looks beautiful, it's really nice, but it's not that helpful. So if you could have that, I guess, fortitude to do that, to ask the question and then listen for the answer around user experience, it'll be gold. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for having me today.
Yes, absolutely. Before we scoot out, we always like to do a quick segment we call What's Good. So just anything in your life, a recommendation, TV, media, business, whatever you have going on. Just a little bit of good news. So Lindsey, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, in honor of having Chelsea here, as I said before we started recording, anytime we can talk about food, I get very excited. So now that it's the holiday season, my partner's pulling out all of the secret family recipes for holiday cookies and treats that I get to consume. And so I'm very excited. He just went to the store and picked up all of his ingredients for 7-layer bars and his grandma's secret delicious coconut balls that he has recently discovered there is no recipe like it online. So we found something truly unique and special that he cooks every holiday season, and I get to eat all of it. And so I'm very excited. That's my what's good, is that holidays are here and I get to eat all the baked goods. Oh, and I remembered her name is Donna Hayes. So we were talking about earlier the Disney Plus special I saw, and that was what it was Donna Hayes.
And you're right, she is like our Martha Stewart in that, and she has a very distinctive look, often neutral palette,
Yes.
pale blue and pale white. Yeah, she's Australia's answer to beautiful tables and lovely simple cooking.
Love it. Yep, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, Donna Hey.
Hey, excuse me. Yeah.
Chelsea, I hope we're not putting you too much on the spot here, but do you have a what's good for us today?
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm inspired by Lindsey, and because it is the holidays, I make a really mean non-alcoholic punch, and it's super simple. Forgive me if the terms are not the same across the continents, but ginger ale, maybe ginger beer, but it's non-alcoholic, lemonade, cranberry and mint and lime. I think that's what is in it. Super simple, but then garnishing it with really cool, big square ice blocks, or those orb shape ice blocks, the big round ones, and then sprigs of mint. And because of the cranberry, it's a reddy hue, and it's just perfect for the holidays. And it's cheap. It looks amazing. And it was also meant that, because I have 3 beautiful nephews, get emotional thinking about them, and it just means I get to kind of drink with them because they're allowed the punch as well at Christmas time. And it's just brought so much joy to our family. It's so simple. It just seems
really fun.
Yeah, it's just simple and sweet.
I love that,
That's
the tradition that runs through it, right? I'm sure it's a beautiful dish, but it's so much more than that too.
That sounds amazing. Is it equal parts, all of those?
I'll send it to you. Yes.
Okay.
It is.
Because I'm really eager to try it now. That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Perfect. So Lindsey, you stole mine to a degree. I was going to be keying on holiday season, but to change it up, I'll go back and steal yours with our AI generated images this week. Lindsey's been playing all week and sending me over different things she's playing with, and I've got in the background here on my screen some pictures of Percy with the sunglasses on, kind of like our logo, but in different holiday scenes, eating different holiday items. So Lindsey, you have to remind me that the name of the technology that we're playing with this week. But
yeah, it's called Midjourney, and it actually runs through the app Discord. So it's just like a chat server that you can download on your phone or on your computer. It's not browser based, it's within Discord. And it basically just creates AI generated art from text. So you give it text prompts, and then it gives you 4 images that it thinks you want. And then you can build off of that. And I have spent way too many hours between the time I discovered it, and Andy has had to see way too many weird images that I've created. So I'll definitely share some in here so they can see Percy. But we put Percy in front of a holiday feast, and the holiday feast interpretation was very interesting from the AI. It had lots of interesting things that I thought a holiday feast would be.
Yeah, we'll have to get that up on the video. But yeah, no, it's amazing what it can do. Just kind of blows your mind a little bit, and seems really powerful. I'm sure we'll be using this for different business applications in not too long.
Sounds
Definitely.
so fun. God,
Yeah.
I'd lose hours doing that.
I definitely did.
Well, great. So as we wrap up here, Chelsea, where can folks go to find you? And feel free to take a second to plug your services here.
Thank you, Andy and Lindsey. Absolutely delightful to be with you both today and your audience. Femalesinfood.com is the best place. They can find my podcast, Foodpreneur, which is done really, really well. It was only launched this year, and people are finding it really helpful. And Andy, you, of course, were one of my recent guests, or to be broadcast soon. And if they want to find out about working with me through my group coaching program, Foodpreneurs Formula, helping women in packaged food and drink scale, enrollment will be opening soon. The details are also at femalesinfood.com, or come and say hello on Instagram, females.in.food, and ping me and let me know that you heard me on the Pitbulls. I would love that. And even whatever, just say whatever.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate you being so generous with your time and with expertise. I think we covered a ton of ground here today, so we'll definitely have to come back and do this again soon.
I would love to.
Awesome. Lindsey, you want to read us out?
Yeah, so if you liked what you heard today, which how could you not? It was absolutely lovely, Chelsea. Thank you again. Go ahead and subscribe and get notified when we launch new episodes. And if you're ready to take the next step in your digital marketing journey, you just go to ppcpitbulls.com/assessment to take our digital marketing maturity assessment, and we'll help you determine your next step. Thank you again. Totally enjoyed it, and can't wait to see what comes next from you.